Hello to each and every one of our listeners. I am excited you're here today. We have the pleasure of speaking with Rhianna Campbell. Rhianna built, grew, and sold a multi-million dollar real estate business all before the age of 40. Rhianna's success, however, didn't come without experiencing adversity, burnout, and at times making no money. She now gives clients a gentle push out of their comfort zone, some accountability, and tools and systems required to build, scale, and pivot your own profitable real estate business. Welcome, Rhianna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you. So, Rhianna, you've had several major resets in your life. Share with us how one of your major resets came in high school and how you used that life changing experience to propel you forward to becoming a millionaire.
Yes. so my my high school experience was a little bit different than, say, my friends and a lot of other people. I got pregnant at 17 and had my daughter when I was in my senior year in high school. And of course, when you have a child that young and you're barely able to make a living, it sets you on the path of poverty. And that was really a struggle for me. It was very challenging to kind of maintain my hopes and dreams and also make sure that I'm doing everything I can to take care of this new life that I brought into the world. So it was really challenging. And right after high school, I got a scholarship because I was super smart to go to college. And I started off my college education thinking I could juggle all things, and that didn't work out very well. And so I had to rethink what I was doing and really just prioritize taking care of my child and trying to get a full-time job and, putting food in her mouth and a roof over her head. And that was the thing that I just had to think about and do when she was really young. But then I had a moment of time that I knew I had an opportunity to go back to school. And this was when she turned 5, when she was going to be able to start elementary school. So when I didn't have all the childcare expenses, I was able to change things up a little bit and apply for school again and go back to school and finish my education while she was in school. And that was a struggle, but I did it and I got through it. And there's so much of my journey after that, but that's kind of how I had to just reset myself at a very, very young age.
I always want to know, as you're experiencing that, because there is stigma related to being a teen parent. There's so much that you had to overcome. Tell us about like your mindset. And I love that you shared that. Hey, I am, not that I am really smart, really intelligent, was doing well in school. So talk to us about, I want to know where your mindset is after, you've graduated from high school and now you almost think that, is it the survival mode came in? And then also too, I want to give my daughter an excellent life. I'm a parent now. I always want to know what's going through your mind at this time, because you're young, right?
I was super young. I was super young and uh, I had no idea of life. I hadn't lived beyond living with my parents. So I didn't know beyond like taking care of your doll babies, right? You don't really know how to take care of a child. It comes with a whole another level of responsibility. And it seemed easy at first, just the thought of, having a baby. But then, once she was born, I felt that need to take care of her and be responsible like I should. And she became my priority. But having a child in high school is very shameful. It's very different, not being part of the in crew when you're at school. Like you have other priorities, you have other things that you have to do when everyone else is going off to like prom and after prom party and homecoming and all the football games and like all the things that you want to be able to experience your senior year of high school. You don't really get the chance to experience. And I missed out on a lot because I had a job and I had to work and I had childcare bills to pay for and I had formula I had to buy. There was just so many things that I had to prioritize over my own wants and needs. And it got really challenging for me. Lucky for me, I had a ton of support at home. My mother was an amazing contributor to helping me and in raising my child. My sister was in the childcare industry, and she was really helping me. She's my younger sister, just really helping me try to care for her. But it was still my responsibility, and my mother made sure to let me know that. She definitely wanted me to understand the choices that I had made and the consequence of those choices and the work that it took to be able to raise a child. But it was very challenging. It was very challenging. And I think looking back now, it it put me to the test very early on in life. It tested me in so many ways. It stretched me. It pushed me, and uh, all of my best qualities came out, and all of my worst qualities came out. And I had moments where I would break down and cry because I just didn't really know what I was doing. There's no manual on like being a good parent to your child. Like that doesn't exist. And I wasn't too sure how to juggle my own goals and what I wanted in life, and still be responsible for someone else. So yeah, it was really challenging.
It was challenging, but you did it. It was a struggle, but you did it. And in
I
the midst
did.
of all this, you went to college and you built your own real estate company. Tell us more about that build, that grind, what you learned, what you experienced, and how you did you know you wanted to do real estate or did you fall into real estate?
I definitely fell into real estate. I all the plans that I had before having a baby was I wanted to be a doctor. And so I was so gung ho on being becoming a doctor. And so when I went to school, I was pre-med in college, and I got to my junior year and classes started getting really, really hard. And I was frustrated every day. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I torturing myself? And my boyfriend at the time, I remember calling him up after, like during a biology class. I was walking to class. I went into the building. I went in class and I stared at all the students sitting in class, and I was like, I can't do it again. I just cannot go back to class. I can't do it. And I went outside and I sat on the bench, and I called him just in pure frustration. And he heard me and he said, I don't even understand why you want to be a doctor. Like you spend your day and night on spreadsheets all the time working out your budget. Like this doesn't make any sense to me, but I didn't want to say anything. And it took someone else realizing my gifts for me to recognize it in myself. And right after that, I changed my major and I went into more of a financial economics major. And through that, I got an internship at a mortgage company and was able to work at the mortgage company and learn from mortgage loan officers. And I learned so much. And this was back in 2004. So if you know anything about real estate, there was a bubble, right? There was a real estate bubble. And then in 2008, it burst. So I got in right when the bubble was at its peak. It was really amazing. Like you just didn't have to do anything and you can get a mortgage loan. You just had to breathe and have a social security number and you could get a mortgage. And it was a great experience for me because I decided, I asked the broker that I was doing the internship for if I could stay on and do some mortgages and actually figure things out by myself. And he said, yeah, come on board. And he took me in, and I started my real estate career right then and there, and learned a lot and did a ton of loans and made so much money I couldn't believe I could make so much money on like one transaction. and and yeah, so that started me on my path in real estate. But of course, when the bubble burst, I had to rethink about things. In 2008, I decided to get my real estate education and really learn um, just about what else was out there. Like, what are the other options? What are the other things that people are doing in real estate? And there is so much going on in real estate. You can do so many different things. But I learned a ton about real estate investing and decided to start investing. Um, and wholesaling seemed like the easy entry point. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just following instructions and I just did a couple of things. And what ended up happening was I met a lot of real estate investors who owned property and needed some support and some help managing those properties. And so the birth of my property management company started then. And I had no idea what I was doing, but that's when it all began. And I just learned and I grew. And yeah, and then of course, business just blew up and it just grew really fast. And then it got to multi-million dollar levels before I could even think twice. And yeah, and then I got lucky enough to sell it.
Wow, as you're talking, like words are coming to my mind, like assertive, initiative, driven, inquisitive, lifelong learner. And I would be remiss not to say, wow, that's so much a part of your success. Like whatever, it's almost like whatever is handed to you in terms of lemons. Like if you're dealt a bad hand, you're making lemonade out of all of these situations as you're talking. I'm like, wow, impressive, impressive. So when you were building your real estate company and you're just learning as you go, is there any like, I don't know what I'm doing? And did you ever have like the feeling of like that imposter, like I have no idea what I'm doing, and or I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel? Or was that you were just so locked into the experience and you were enjoying learning that you were like, I'm just gonna go all in and trust that it'll work out? I'm curious, like again, I always want to know like where's people's headset when all of this is
Right.
going on?
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I just didn't have a clue. When I first got started, I was not even charging enough to make any money. I think I was spending more money than I was getting back. And so I was in the negative in my business for a really long time. I was making nothing. But I used the experience to learn to figure things out. And so it was a learning opportunity. So I kind of paid for hands on education, right? Um, I was scared. I had no clue what was happening. There were laws I didn't even understand. And there were things that I had no idea of, laws that existed that I had no awareness of. And I honestly just kept moving. And I always recommend that to people is just take action, um, and be scared and do it anyway. I think that's what got me to the level of success that I was able to get to. And you learn as you go and you make mistakes, and mistakes are okay. It's like, I think people are so worried about doing it wrong. And even I worry about doing it wrong. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. I worry about making mistakes because they can cost you a lot of money. And sometimes it's money you don't even have. But you learn from every experience that you have, good or bad. There's something that you can take away from it. And everything that I created, I I improved based on my experience. So as I put it together based on my low level of understanding of what I was doing, I improved it over time. As I grew my business, I learned a better way of doing things, and then a better way of doing things, and then a better way of doing things. And I just improved it incrementally. But you just have to start somewhere. You just have to start moving. And then things will kind of unfold, and then you just take it one step at a time.
Oh, as you were talking, like, and I have to go back to this when you're talking about the biology, I thought about myself because I was a biology major and I remember my junior year of college, I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to like go into medical school. I don't even want to apply. And I'm going through all these. I remember being in organic chemistry thinking like this is like torture and pain. And then as you were talking about you have to start somewhere, I think so many people like get stuck or stopped in their own minds like, well, it's not really perfect. And I had to have someone tell me like, Raven, your 70% is probably someone else's like 110, but you didn't even do anything and they're out there winning because at least they did something. And as you said, incrementally, they learn. You
Yeah.
learn maybe what to do or maybe what not to do. So you have to start though, and you can't even have that experience or that exposure without doing something to just move the needle forward and use it as a learning opportunity. So I'm glad that you shared that because I can completely relate to that. I'm sure many people that will listen can relate to that as well. And going back to your company, you've amassed a success. You've turned an obstacle into opportunity. You have done so much. Now what?
Yeah. So um, I realized after a few years of building my business that my level of stress and anxiety just started getting worse and worse. Um, And I think as a society, we're so used to seeing everybody stressed out. It's normal for people to be stressed out. And so I just never thought anything of it. And as a matter of fact, when I used to interview people, I used to tell people this can be a really hectic, stressful job. And if you're not having a meltdown at least once a year, then you're not doing a good job. And that was my way to bring people into what I thought was okay and normal for a growing company. And I didn't realize or I failed to recognize that I was burning out. So I think it was maybe a couple years before I actually sold, and I was in a partnership um, with a couple other people, and it was a couple years before I sold that I started feeling very lethargic all the time. And I remember hiring this consultant, and she came in one day and she decided to do something different for that day for whatever reason. She's like, okay, let's go around the room and let's talk about how we feel. And I was like, oh my God, here we go.
You're like, oh,
Like,
okay, Dr. Phil type
okay,
stuff. Okay.
all right, we're getting into the nitty gritty feeling stuff. Okay. And so everyone started talking about their feelings. And then when she got to me, she's like, Rhianna, how do you feel? And I said, I feel like a candle about to go out. And that's exactly how I felt. I had no other way to describe it, but I remember saying that. And as soon as she heard it, she says, I think you have adrenal fatigue. And I had no idea what that was. I was like, okay, I'm going to just Google that later after the meeting because I need to figure out what she's diagnosing me of. And I looked it up, and it's basically stress induced fatigue. So you're just tired and exhausted because of stress. Um, but that's actually one of the signs of burnout, and I didn't recognize that. And I started noticing shortly after that conversation that my health was just declining. Um, and stress just really took hold of me, and that burnout turned from um, every like once a year situation to all the time, every day. And your body can't take that much. And I didn't realize it, but I started having health related issues. I remember a situation where I was rushed to the hospital because for whatever reason I was doing something. I felt dizzy and my vision went black. I thought, I was that something was happening to me. I literally thought I was going blind. And by the time I got to the hospital, I hate going to hospitals. I always try to avoid going to the emergency room at all costs because you feel sicker once you're there. But once I got there, I was like, this is bad. but I need to stay because I want them to make sure that I'm okay. And they did a whole bunch of tests and tested me for everything, looked at my brain and my body and everything, and came back and said, I believe you had a stress induced migraine. And I was like, what? Like migraines, like people complain about, like bad headaches? Like that makes no sense to me. And they're like, yeah, the symptoms you described, and based on the results of your tests, which don't show any physical issues, I really believe you had a stress induced migraine. I was like, I literally felt like I was going blind. That's crazy to me that this is just a migraine. Um, but that was an indication that there was so much going on internally that I wasn't really paying attention to. And then about 4 years ago, shortly before I sold my business, I got pregnant with my second child. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized that I couldn't live this life anymore. Um, and one of the things about growing a business when you have a child or a family to take care of is you sacrifice time with your family to grow a business, especially when your business is growing super fast. I think I spent more time in my business than I did with my family. And that, for a lot of people is normal, right? You go to work 9 to 5, you see your family, evenings and weekends for the most part. But I spent more than 9 to 5 working my business because it was a 24/7 type of thing. And so I was always paying attention to my business and I sacrificed a lot of valuable time with my family. And so when I got pregnant again, and I decided, you know, that I needed to do things differently, um, my business was the first thing I thought didn't make sense. It didn't fit into the picture of the life that I wanted to have. And it, in addition to like my health concerns and other things going on, um, it just didn't fit. It didn't really work. So I decided at that point that I needed to figure out um, how to get out of it and what that looked like and what that was going to take out of me and what timing would be and how much work I would have to put in. But I needed an exit strategy and I didn't have one before. So that was hard.
As you were talking, and when you talked about, I hate going to the hospital. My background's in healthcare, so I was in the hospital every day. So, interesting when you were saying that. But one of the things that you said that stood out to me is that when you would interview people, you would share, "Oh, this is hard. This is challenging," and I thought the same thing when I would interview nurses. We would say, "Hey, you may work a 14-hour shift," and I would say that wondering to see how they, gauge in people's responses. And in hindsight, this was not healthy. We're sharing with people that, hey, you're going to have a 14-hour, maybe 16-hour shift to see how they respond, when we're basically glorifying or encouraging people not having that work life harmony, that work life integration, that burnout, overworking. And when you were talking about, hey, this like part of your story, it made me think when I have my own reset, is this the type of lifestyle that you want? And even when it came to sacrificing, so I've, for my pretty much entire working history, lived on an opposite coast or 4 or 5 states over where it required like flying from my family. And I thought about, because of my role or my career, where I sacrifice holidays because I'm on call this Christmas or this Thanksgiving or what have you. And I would rather be a million places than the hospital right now. And as you were talking, that just really resonated with me, because I do think we have a societal problem of glorifying hustle, grind. How can you overwork? And one of the actual other podcast guests, we're going to talk about authentic inaction, because overdoing and just being always in a state of do, it does lead to burnout. So I want to know, after you recognize, hey, I'm burned out and I'm not able to spend the time with now you have you're pregnant or you have a newborn and you're not able to spend the time with your family that you desire. And I know that you sold your business. I want to know about the in between. What did you do? Because I always think that you have to pause with purpose. So talk about that time where it's was it a self-love journey? Was it a self-discovery journey of what does the next chapter look like for me? Because you've accomplished so much and I can only imagine how challenging that decision was for you. It was a big decision. I've worked so hard. I've built this from the ground up, but my peace of mind, my happiness, my legacy, my family, those are more important to me. So I want to know more about what did you do in this time of in between before going into the business coaching and consulting.
Yeah. So before I sold, looking back, I think I was more abusive towards myself.
Mhm.
Um, I had built up something really um, important, and not just for me, but for employees. Like I had people that relied on this business to live and take care of their own families. Um, and I felt like I had a responsibility that I had to maintain. And I felt like um, I had to see it through to the end, whatever that end looked like. Um, but I think one of the things that I had to do was prioritize. I had to prioritize my life. Um, my child was important. My health was important. Um, and I couldn't sacrifice myself and I couldn't sacrifice my child at the benefit of others. So it took a lot for me to come to that decision, but um, yeah, but it made it was something that just needed to be made. And my pregnancy was one of the most challenging moments in my life. And I still feel the guilt and the resentment and the stress and the anxiety uh, of that moment, of that time. It was just a really horrible time for me. My reset and really recognizing what I was going through didn't happen until after I sold. Once I rid myself of the stress of that business, um, I was able to stop and slow down. And when I was at a very slow pace, I could actually make sense of it all. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that when I was in it, right? It's like when you're drowning, all you know is you're drowning. You don't know like anything else. And so it wasn't until afterwards that I actually, you know, realized what I had gone through and the challenges that I had to overcome, and how bad it was. And yeah, and then on the other side of it, it was such a better experience. So I was grateful for it.
And let's talk about the better experience that you are having and how you're impacting other business owners and their companies. So tell us about what you do today and what led you to becoming a business coach and what did you see was missing in your specific area or niche of coaching?
Yeah, so I think one of the first things that I had to do I spent about a year just being a mother, and really focusing on my child. Now, because I'm me, I love to learn. So I was reading books and I was, trying to feed my mind. Um, and so I did that still. But I didn't take action on anything. I just wanted to, um, look at my child and smile every day. That was enough for me. And then after that, I knew I needed to work the other side of my brain. And I needed to, I'm a natural entrepreneur. I needed to think about another business. I needed to think about another thing. And I also wanted to just do something with all my knowledge and experience. I had to spend some time really figuring myself out. Um, I knew what I had done. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want to do what I did before. So I wasn't
Mhm.
about to start doing the same thing I did before. I knew I had a ton of experience. I had a ton of success. I had a ton of knowledge and information in my head, and I was still very much connected to real estate. So I knew I wanted it to still maintain, my involvement in real estate. But I wasn't too sure what that looked like. And then I got approached by a lady who owned a real estate business, who was my competitor at the time when I owned my business, who realized, okay, now that you've sold, can you help me? And
I
I said,
need you
sure.
now.
I said, sure, I'm happy to help. And so, I started consulting with her and then took on another client and then another client. And then COVID hit and I had to rethink what I was doing. And I was like, hey, I can just do it online now. And online consulting opened me up to talking to anybody. So I had clients in Texas and clients um, uh, in California and clients in Oklahoma and just all over, as well as clients in DC. So it was easy for me to shift over um, into consulting kind of online. I just didn't know exactly how I fit into the picture. And so I've had to figure that out. I've had to figure out um, what my gifts are and how I'm going to share that with people. And my unique story is that I built a business that stressed me out, it burned me out, and I can save other people from that. I recognize now what I went through, and I can help other people not have to get to the point of burnout, and kind of guide them to a less stressful, both financially and physically and mentally, place that they can have in their life. So yeah, it's fun stuff. Fun helping other people.
That's awesome. And sounds like you have found where you fit into this the picture. And it makes me think about too when you think about coaches and consultants. And I was having this conversation with a friend the other day, and we're like, well, what makes person X stand out from person Y, or coach A from coach B? And I said, it's your story. People connect with a story, and they connect with the heart of the person. Like, hey, I've been there. Let me tell you, I've been at rock bottom, and I've been at the top, and I've been burned out. And I can tell you, all of these things that I learned, some through trial and error, some through misfortune, some through loss of money. But I've been there, and I can help you. And your transparency and sharing your story and all that you've been through and all that you have overcome and continue to help other people overcome is powerful. And that's what makes people resonate and connect and say, hey, I like her. I want to work with her. She's real. She's honest. And she's transparent, and I can resonate with that. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. So before I ask my final question, where can our listeners or our viewers find you online?
Yeah, so I'm on all the social medias, right? So you can find me at Rhianna M. Campbell, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Um, I also have my website. So if you go to properplanning.realestate, you can find me. You can also shoot me an email, send me a DM, connect with me in all those ways.
Awesome. And final question, what's the biggest lesson you've learned in your reset?
I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is um, uh, not to go with the flow. I
Mm,
think as society, we make things normal when they're not okay. We get used to seeing other people doing things, and that becomes a, a culture, but that doesn't make it okay. And so being able to be kind of different and do things differently, um, and not fall victim to being uh, part of that culture, I think is really key to our own happiness. And I had to find that for myself. I had to define for myself what I wanted, and not what society fed me, right? Not that, I want a big house with a white picket fence and, drive the fancy cars. And, like all that stuff is important to a certain extent. But I think questioning why you feel that way and thinking about whether or not if is that what society expects of me or is that what I really desire. I think one of the things that I learned in my journey through self-discovery is, I think everyone has in their mind a number that if they hit that number, then they're in a much better financial place. Um, and for some people, it's like, if I could make six figures, I would be good. And some people, it's like, if I could get to $1 million, my business would be good. And some of that's just not as important as you think it is.
mm.
Like, what do you want in life? What does that money provide for you? Because more money doesn't necessarily solve problems. You just have to figure out what's going to make you happy. Now, money can help you to get to a much happier place. And I'd rather have more money than not have enough. But um, happiness and success had to be redefined for me. And I had to figure out what really brought me joy and fulfillment and how can I do that and then make money off of it, versus how can I make money. I think a backwards way of doing it because we get into that hustle mentality or that grind mentality and expect happiness from it. And that's just not how I've seen it work. I don't know anyone who's happy to grind. Um, they're exhausted. They're not their full selves and they're not giving their all and best self to their family, their friends. So, just being different and rethinking things, I think, is really important.
I love it. Be different and don't go with the flow. So good. So good. Such a great ending. Thank you, Rihanna. This was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Great questions, by the way. It's just really good. Making me think.
All right, everyone. That was a struggle, but I did it. I got through it. It took someone else recognizing my gifts for me to recognize it myself. Take action. Be scared and do it anyways. And the action Rihanna and I both want you to take right now is to share this episode. And I want to stay connected with you. And you can do that by following me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Until next week, remember, a reset is always available to you.